Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hello and welcome to this live stream, Science to Data Science, PhDs and postdocs moving to industry. So we'll be spending some 90 minutes together today, and I'm here to support, so to speak. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about moving to industry if you are a master's student or a PhD, or if you generally want to move into this industry. We've been running this live stream for a number of years now. It's an event that is repeated like every month to enable people to kind of move mainly from science to data science. So that's why the title is Science to Data Science, PhDs and postdocs moving to industry. That's the core audience. But also from where I come in working with the AI Guild and its 2,000 specialists in anything from data analytics to ML ops, there's a lot of background knowledge about how careers work and how entry-level, mid-level, and senior-level positions work. So this is why I'm here for you today on these 90 minutes to be able to answer any questions that you have. But the other thing is also, of course, we're running this live stream to be able to present things to you. And this is what I'm now going to jump into doing. So, science to data science. I'm showing you a slide with some 10 examples, and I'm showing you this slide with some 10 examples to make the point that if you look at the names, or if you look at the disciplines, where people are coming from and how they break into tech, then we have here, for example, 6 women and 4 men. We have very different disciplines from mathematics to the natural sciences to economics. And we have people from all over the world. So some were born in Argentina, some were born in China, some were born in Germany, some moved to Europe, some moved maybe countries twice. So what I'm wanting to say is, wherever you're from and whoever you are, it is possible to start a data career. Now, 9 out of these 10 people have a PhD, but there's also somebody here, Lisa Fotina, she's from Moscow, now lives in Hamburg, who did it with a master's degree. What they all share, what they all have in common is a high level of numeracy. So the numeracy really makes the difference. It's the main requirement to get into the industry. So why are we offering this? Why are you here? Why are you watching this? Why are we doing this live stream? I have the following quote for you. No matter who you are, self-improvement is one of the most important and most overlooked attributes of a young talent. It only takes 4 years of experience to become a senior or 5 years of experience to lead. The determination and discipline to improve both the hard and the soft skills continue will be the deciding factor. So what I'm trying to say is we know from experience that this holds true, so that it's a really attractive career prospects. So you need to start, and within 4 years you are a senior. Within 5 years you can lead. You can also perhaps even be a senior faster than those 4 years. The person writing this, Jean-François Gagné, was the co-founder of Element AI, one of the really well-funded startups in the AI space. And a serial entrepreneur, and he speaks, so to speak, from his Canadian and North American experience, and he's done reports over the years of the number of professionals that work worldwide, and he has been looking at the market situation. And the last time he did this at scale was for the year 2020, where we have as a rough estimate, about 500,000 professionals that work, of which 99% actually work on productionizing data analytics, machine learning, AI. So AI research, if you look here at this table, is below 1% in the supply mix already in 2020. So the 2020s really are the years in which this is being productionized, at scale. It's also the years in which this industry is going to grow a lot. So for 2020, we have a baseline of 500,000 practitioners. If you look at software professionals for that year, we're at a baseline of about 15 million. So the assumption here, I think the credible assumption here is that this market will grow tenfold in the next 10 years, tenfold or more. Tenfold would mean 5 million professionals in the field by 2030. We're running this this webinar here. We've been running it for a while, and there's also free additional information available out for you. So if you want to look at other things or look at more, you can do so easily. As I mentioned, I'm with the AI Guild. If you're a highly numered person and you're starting a data career, you can find the website at theguild.ai, and you can join the community if you like. So what are you getting today? So over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be looking at starting a data career. We're going to be looking at a roadmap to getting hired. And we're going to be then more specifically dive into the industry-ready CV. And in conclusion, look out at what's ahead in the next 20 years. So I work for the AI Guild actually, and I also have a background in academia. So I did a PhD in the UK. I was for 2 years as a postdoc at the European University Institute on something called the John Monnet Fellowship. So when I was a postdoc, I already knew that I was be leaving, and my way out of academia back then was that I started working for the Max Planck Society. So not a particular Max Planck Institute, but for the Max Planck Society on rolling out its digital infrastructures, and doing a large-scale analytics. This is like 15 years ago, doing large-scale analytics. Back then it was called basically Logfile Analytics. Perhaps log files, web logs, it's kind of the traces of behavior that we leave on the internet. And you can analyze those at scale. Today, this is known, for example, as product analytics. It may also be known in, so to speak, in data analytics in terms of user behavior online. And of course, one of the biggest use cases has been to use this type of data to develop recommendation engines. So that's what some of the stuff that you can build on top of Logfile Analytics. Okay, so let's dive right in. And I would like to say that questions are now welcome. I'm just going to type here just for you to perhaps to see this. So if you have any questions, please ask them now. I will pick them up as we go through. You can ask questions really about anything you like, so that's fine. So just to recap, we're looking at the fastest growing labor market for the highly qualified. It still is, it will be over the coming years. And I think this is what makes this area special. So if you're in academia, overall, the general piece I would have is that you would switch as soon as possible. So switch as soon as possible means you have the degree and you have greater 12 months Python experience. I think this is, so to speak, the essence of it. So the field has changed. Like 5 years ago, if you went around at universities and research institutes and ask about programming languages, for MATLAB, most hands went up. For Python, R, and SQL, hands went up as well, but for MATLAB back then, most hands went up. If you go now, you typically meet, and you may well be among them, you typically meet people with years of Python experience. So I think the threshold here at the moment is 12 months Python experience. You need that to be able to start your data career. So that's like a must-have. Without that, it's just too hard to get interviews and a job offer on the table. So you need your degree, you are numerate anyway, and you have 12 months of Python experience. Then the next thing that's really interesting is that you can really help yourself very much by understanding what type of role you're looking to fill. So of course, the data scientist is the sexiest job of the 21st century. And there was a time when the data scientist the concept of data scientist covered all kinds of roles, but this is no longer the case. So we have the data analyst, we have the data engineer, we have the data scientist, we have the ML engineer, we have ML ops, we have computer vision, we have NLP, but now we even have analytics engineering. Okay, so the field is rapidly becoming more specialized, and there are more specific roles that are emerging. And it is really interesting for you to understand what kind of skills you have that fit these roles, and also to understand, of course, on the other side, which role you would like to be in. And it's really important to understand this early. Now, the field is still so young that none of this is preset. So if you really want to be a data engineer, or you really want to move into machine learning, you can still do that. It's because the overall talent pool and the overall number of practitioners isn't that big yet. Yeah? Because the field will be developing rapidly over the next 10 years. These kinds of career moves are very much in your hand. If you figure out what you want, what you want to do, then you can simply move in that direction, and it should work for you. Okay, but you do need to understand what data role you seek, because just generically applying for data scientist isn't going to work. It isn't going to work because you would then need to make sure that your technical profile actually says that you're a data scientist. It's also probably not necessarily the best option, because for reasons indicated, it was the general concept. Still, most people still apply for data scientists. I also know this from practical experience. You advertise for a data scientist, you get, 150 applications. You advertise for data engineer, you get 30 applications. You advertise for data analyst, you get 50 applications. So data scientist still has this multiple, so it's much harder to compete at entry level as a data scientist. Whereas there are other roles, product analyst, marketing analyst, data analyst, analytics engineering, data engineering, that don't see that many applications because it's not so popular, so to speak. But in many ways, it may well be the much more interesting role, because if you think, for example, about somebody who works in product analytics, then you're probably dealing with a company that is internet-based. It has a strong digital product. There are precisely these millions of log files that you can deal with on a daily or monthly basis, traces of what people are doing online with the product, or in downloading the product, or in responding to the advertising, and so on and so on. So it really builds up your data competency very rapidly. And any company, of course, at the end of the day, wants to sell its product or services. So understanding how analytics drives growth and also product improvement can be really, really interesting. So I do actually, one is the industry. So are you in finance, automotive, or health? But also where to in terms of the type of company. Perhaps you know that. Perhaps your friends can help you discuss it. Perhaps you have friends that work in a corporate, in a startup, or in a consulting. But give it a thought. Give it a thought, because the type of company is relatively important for you, so to speak, in the first year and the second year, in the sense of an environment in which you thrive. Okay, so you're starting a data career, you found your role, but if it's a misfit in terms of the type of company, you're likely not going to be super happy and possibly run into problems. So, are you somebody that really likes big organizations? Do you like the security that they offer? Do you like the well-defined career path? Do you like the fact that they have a lot of resources, that it's a stable business, and so on and so on? Can you work in a startup? Do you mind, can you work in a really small startup? Can you work in a small company? Can you live with the uncertainty? Do you thrive at the fact that you can seize opportunities? Can you work in a startup that is a scale up? So a company that is growing from like 100 employees to 1,000, 2,000, 300 employees, maybe in just 1 to 2 years. So, you will have to reinvent or invent all the processes as you go along. There will be a lot of pressure. You're growing really rapidly. Is that for you? Or do you want to be in the consulting business, which is actually service, not product oriented, where you have clients, where you have lots of stakeholders, where you need to do project management, and so on and so on. So give it a thought, talk to people around you, and figure out which one of these is most for you. It's really, really important. And if you are coming out of university with a PhD, for example, then there is a way in which, if you are not exactly super sure where you want to go, there is a way in which consulting is actually a good choice. So consulting is a good choice in the sense that consulting companies really love hiring PhDs. They love hiring them because they love hiring smart people, and because they're a client-oriented service business, the clients also love that if the consulting firm comes around with smart people. So that really works for them. The benefit that you have is that if you're in the consulting industry, is that you get to see a lot. So if you work for a consulting industry that works across multiple industries, you have the chance to do projects in multiple industries. Now finance, now automotive, now health, yeah, now something in telecoms, now something else. So you could, over 2 to 3 years, look at a number of industries. You also get, if you change projects frequently enough, a chance to look at different companies. So you can, in a particular industry, look at companies, or just generally get a feel for how companies work. Of course, if you're working in a consulting firm, your clients will be corporates, not startups. Yeah, they will typically be corporates. But you get a good idea of how this works, and you can use 2 to 3 years to make a decision about whether you want to stay in the consulting industry, if it's for you, or you will have a really, really good understanding of the world around you and be able to make a more informed choice about where you want to spend the next 10 years. So that can, in particular, work for you. So I just said, where to, so which industry. I'm just showing you a market map here, so you can have a market map of AI startups, a market map of AI startups in the United States or in Germany or in France or in Europe or in East Asia. So you can find these market maps and you can use them for orientation purposes to figure out which industry. I'm showing you market maps because chances are that perhaps at this point in time, you're not exactly clear where you want to go. And then these type of market maps, they sort things by categories. So I don't actually mean all the colorful logos. They're not really interesting to you. But what is interesting to you is, so to speak, to look at, for example, industry-specific applications, and then to quickly discover, okay, finance, insurance, retail, healthcare, telecom, aerospace, government, agriculture, construction, maritime. It's for me or it's not for me. I'm interested, I have a connection because of what I studied, or I don't. Okay. So you can use such market maps to relatively quickly, kind of cross out like 10, 20 options, but maybe, and more importantly, also find like 5 options that you're actually interested in. And this way you relatively quickly move forward on this key dimension, so to speak. Yeah. Which industry is it? And as you're moving forward with this question, you get to tie together what kind of role do I want in what type of company in which industry. Those 3 questions, if you are able to answer them, apologies, go a long way to helping you make an informed choice and really powering your job search. Okay, to power your job search, you need an industry-ready CV. Now, if you're in academia, then you may have an academic CV, but to be honest, the academic CV looks nothing like an industry-ready CV. So you need to rethink this. And I have like 4 pointers for you. So you need a technical skills section because you get considered for your interview by highlighting your technical skills. You actually get invited for the interview if you can also show some business or organization skills. If you're coming out of academia, you can consider these transferable skills. Actually, if you like, you go Google transferable skills, or you ask ChatGPT what transferable skills are and what the most important ones are. And you can use this to improve your CV. The other 2 parts are that you need to be able to tell your data experience, and you need to be able to tell your data experience in a way that is relevant and easy to understand. And you can really help yourself by focusing your search with a professional mission. So we're going to look at this industry-ready CV in a little more detail in a minute. But I want you for now just simply to imagine your CV or resume and also your LinkedIn profile. Okay, they need to be aligned. And I'm going to use the CV or resume now to talk about how to structure this. So the most important part on a CV that works well with hiring managers is that at the very top of the CV, you focus on a profile statement, and that you focus on a profile statement that is, it embodies who you are and your mission. So the profile statement isn't interesting if you're just recapitulating what you did in the past 3 years. It particularly doesn't work if in the past 3 years you've been in academia and now you want to move to industry. Then this type of profile statement that's about your past doesn't work. That's why I think about it as your professional mission statement. It's very likely to start with, I'm a data scientist, I'm a data analyst, I'm a product analyst, or whatever it is that you want to be and how you see yourself. You actually do not start with, I'm a research student or I'm a PhD. You can say, I'm a data analyst with a PhD in astronomy. You can say that. And then, 3 years of data analytics using Python, because as an astronomer, this is what I was doing. Yeah? And then you, just like I said, you said you want to be a data analyst. You have a PhD in astronomy. You have 3+ years of experience of handling data because you were doing your astronomy PhD. This included setting up pipelines or analyzing data. So you're a data analyst with also pipeline engineering competence. You might quantify the amount of data that you've looked at overall. And then you would say something along the lines that you're looking for a new opportunity in industry XY. So I don't know, in the in the retail industry. And then you would perhaps even specify from when, so from April 2023 or August 2023. And you would also possibly specify, I am looking for a role in San Francisco, Berlin, remote, Berlin or Germany, Paris or France, so that people looking at your profile statement at a glance, relatively quickly understand who you are professionally, what role you're looking for, what type of industry and company you're interested in, where you are or where you're willing to relocate. Okay. For anybody going through the candidates, this is the most important question. Yeah. Do they fit the role? Do they fit to us as a company? So are they available? Can they relocate to us? Are we where they want to be? So, do they fit the role? Do they fit to the company? And then in between, so to speak, do they have the experience and also the sense of direction that makes them an interesting person to talk to and potentially hire? So right at the top, you need this mission statement. It's at the top of your CV. And once you've done it, you actually copy it to LinkedIn, and it powers your profile on LinkedIn in the About section right at the top as well. So these are likely to be identical. Really, number one. Number two is your technical skills. So your mission statement and your technical skills are what gets you past the no. Okay. The no is, so to speak, the fact that if you think about recruiting, a company will want to hire 100 people. A company will want 100 applications to hire one person. So this means saying no 99 times. Okay. So how do you get past the no? How do you get past the initial no and actually make it to the interview stage? Mission statement and your technical skills. And this is it. Your technical skills isn't just a list. It's particularly not a random list of technical tools you've been using. It's something where you need to think about, what role am I applying for? Product analyst, data scientist, MLOps engineer. What is the role? And then you need to organize the presentation of your skills. So you need some kind of key concepts. I don't know, data scientist. It would probably say, for example, predictive modeling, visualization, and could also have as a line machine learning. Then maybe in the machine learning line, if you've been using algorithms that, I don't know, it says linear regression, logistic regression, support vector machine, neural network, makes clear what kind of models and tools you've used. For the visualization, maybe you've been using Matplotlib. Maybe you know how to use Tableau. So it would specify some of the tools or libraries that you've been using. At the top, it would also, in the technical skills section, say, 2 years of Python, 3 years of Python and SQL and Git and other kind of like. So think of it like this. You need to present your technical skills for a particular role, and you need to organize so that the reader gets it really, really fast. Think of the following scenario. The company has received 100 applications. It's Friday morning, like now, 12 o'clock. The recruiter now has to go through the 100 applications and find the 6 people they're going to interview. They'll look at the profile statement for 30 seconds. They'll look at your technical skills sections for 60 seconds. and that's all you got. So it needs to be really simple, it needs to be really clear, and people need to understand at a grasp where you're going in your life and whether you have the technical skills for the role that you're applying. So this really is key. Okay, so I've spoken a bit, about how to get started and how to get to those interviews, and I want to take the opportunity to just look at a number of other things that you may have on your mind. And again, please feel free. So people have been sent the wrong link for this webinar. Okay, I apologize. I'm going to show you this so you see. So something has gone wrong here, and I will see if I can fix some of it, but I'm not sure I can. Okay, while I'm trying to fix it, I'm going to continue with this. Apologies. So I want to talk about some of the mundane things that might be on your mind. And these are... Okay, I can't see it. But okay, thank you for this. So talk about visa, local language, and more if you're looking into if you're looking into getting into this market. Or rather, we're going to do this differently. No, so apologies. So some things went wrong on this. I'm going to continue with this. Okay, you posted the link there. Thank you. We'll do a repetition at the beginning of February, and whoever missed it right now can join us then at the beginning of February. And I will make sure to get the information out to all that they get the right link. Okay, so visa, local language, and more. The industry runs on English language. So, and if you're thinking about the language section on your CV, for example, you could just simply say that you would list English as the first language. Yeah, it's the main professional language that this industry, this profession runs on. However, there's something that you need to consider if you're in a particular country where there's a local language other than English. So something that has been happening over the past years is that the local language has become more and more important. It's become more and more important already because of NLP and because text data typically is in the local language. And there's a lot of development on this. And if you want to reach the customers in any particular country, you do need to use the local language for most of the stuff that you do. Sometimes also, like in the finance or insurance industry, it's also already for compliance reasons that actually the stuff that you do is in the local language. So what I want to say is you can get a job based on your English language competence only. And then looking ahead, you do need to consider how you handle local language. And my overall conclusion on this would be that the local language will get progressively more important in the profession, and that you need to get to the point not where you are you don't have to be perfect like a native speaker, but you have to be fluent enough to be able to handle the local language in your working life. Okay, so we've gone through the first part, and I'm now going to talk about, wherever you are, what are the next steps? How do you actually get from A to B? Yeah? How do you get from where you are in science to a data job, a data career? It basically comes in 4 steps. So very quickly, the first step would always be that you do some exploration. The purpose of the exploration is to identify whether the data career is actually for you or not. The second step would be to confirm your domain choice. I've been talking about this, which industry, what type of company, what role. Then the third step would be to figure out whether you move straight into the job search or you want to do some further training. Further training sometimes is popular, but very often actually it's not necessary and perhaps not even the right choice. So it's important to look at this. And those 3 steps basically set you up for the start, and that's the final point. So exploration. as I said, the baseline is that you have 12 months of experience with Python. Okay, let's assume you have that. So how do you go about this? Really, there's like two things that you can do. And they're all aimed at actually figuring out whether a data career is for you and whether this would work, from Monday to Friday, from 9 to 5, or whatever schedule you're on. This needs to work for you. This needs to be what you want to do. Actually, ideally, it's something that you want to do and really like. Yeah, you enjoy it. So how can you do that? Well, of course, you can take online book courses, or you can take a book, and you may have well done that. So you perhaps already know that you like that. Okay. Now, the one other thing that you can do is actually talk to some people that have that job already. It's not necessary to talk to 20 or 100 people, just about 2 or 3 will do. So around you in your network, friends, alumni of your academic institution, meetups you can go to in your city, just whatever you can do. Please go and find 2 to 3 people, sit them down over a cup of coffee, get permission to ask them for half an hour what their job is actually like. Get them to tell you, but also get ready to ask them questions and try and figure out as much as you can in a reasonable kind of way whether this job, 9 to 5, in a data career is actually what you want. And I always recommend doing this first, and I always recommend really treating this as a green light, red light situation. So this means really understanding green light, red light. It really means understanding green light, go ahead, red light, I stop. Because you want that situation, because if it's a red light, then everything else you do after that is no longer meaningful and you would leave it. Yeah. So this is really the most efficient way and also very effective to go about it. Give yourself 4 weeks, 6 weeks, green light, red light. Okay, the next part is if it's a green light, you need to figure out where you want to go. And this is really it. So this is, to my mind, really important. And I've seen this for years now. Very often people think they need to learn some new fancy shit. At the moment, it would somehow be, understand the algorithms behind chat GPT, be able to work on set algorithms. Or being able to do fancy neural networks for computer vision. And for that, I think I'm not ready. I need more technical skill. I need to practice. I need to learn. I need to take 5 online courses. I need to boot camp. Yeah, maybe. And then you have no way of telling unless and until you have an idea where you want to go and what your direction is, what industry you're in, what type of role you really want. So this domain choice needs to come first. It needs to come first for your own sanity, so to speak, but it also needs to come first for your success. And the thing here is that for a number of years, in Europe in particular, companies were more likely to fill data analyst positions rather than they were filling data scientist positions, in the sense that most of the companies are not ready to productionize machine learning at scale. But they are ready to do analytics at scale, and they are still perhaps struggling to take their Excel databases and SAP databases and whatever else they have and develop actually a unified infrastructure on which you can build pipelines that run in real time, and you have a data lake or some unified integrated source of truth from which you can work. A lot of companies are not there. And even if they're internet-based companies, they are not there. Okay, so there is still a lot of development work going into this. It does create also the opportunities. It's why the field is growing so rapidly. But for a lot of this work, you don't actually need fancy machine learning algorithms to be able to apply. And on top of it, even though, of course, one tends to think that, I don't know, working on OpenAI, DeepMind, kind of stuff is the pinnacle. Yeah. But for a career start, it's also really, really interesting to get intimate with data, to understand intimate data in a particular industry, even for a particular product, or for how companies grow, and so on and so on. And for that, you need to be willing to work with the data, and also be willing to work with the data problems. And you're much more likely to be willing to work with the data problems if the industry and the type of company that you're in actually suits you. If you have some intrinsic interest in health data, or you have some interesting interest in marketing data, or something that motivates you to look at mobility data, but of course all the way to autonomous driving if you like, but to look at mobility data, for example, in the sense of traffic optimization, or machine data, so to speak, on how vehicles work, or data that about the production of said vehicles, or something like this. So if you can identify an industry and a type of company that you're really interested in, you're more likely to be willing to work on the data problems. And actually doing this base work is really, really important, because, as you know, garbage in, garbage out. So the quality of the data, the quality of the pipelines, and the quality of all the work that's done on the ground very much determines what you're able to do with it later. That's why domain choice. You actually need to figure this out. Where do you want to go? Okay, number 2. Then number 3, so to speak, search versus training. So with the domain choice and the stuff that you want, you should now be at the stage where you have your CV ready and your LinkedIn profile is updated. And both your CV and your LinkedIn profile speak to where you want to go. Okay. And now you can find out if you want to do further training. Now, if for you're coming out of academia and you want to be in the machine learning, deep learning, computer vision, NLP engineering field, you probably have been using Python for quite a while. You may have even been using certain algorithms to do your academic work. Yes. And then you may feel, okay, I want to do this in industry now. I want to work for a startup. And really what I've done it's academic, it's not industry, it's not business. Yes, so you may want further training, or you may want to upgrade, or you may want to dive deep on something. You can do that. And then there is something you need to consider. So no matter whether you do this online or you do this in person, all of the providers that offer this are in and by themselves typically also actually education institutions. Yeah. Maybe that's why they're appealing to you, because they are education institutions, but they're not actually the industry. Okay, they're just there to help you make the transition easier, or that's actually the promise that they make you, right? That by doing their courses, the transition becomes easier because you are working, you're fine-tuning your skills, and you'll be working on projects or capstone stuff or some other way that has data from industry, or maybe there's even an industry client that is providing the data, and so on and so on. So you get some insight and practice, and that makes a difference. Yes, it may. And then, of course, actually, as you can probably guess where I'm going with this, it doesn't make that much of a difference, because you're still in the education sector and not actually in a first job. So I think you need some really, really good reasons to invest further in your education. You need some really good reasons. Otherwise, you should be applying. And I think you need to set the bar relatively high. And I'm saying this also out of experience, and way too often being contacted by people that have done all this upgrading, upskilling, further education training, and then nevertheless end up searching for their first job like 6 to 9 months. And it turns out that the upskilling that they did was nice, but it was just nice to have. It actually didn't make the definite difference. Okay. And this is not surprising in the sense that most companies need to hire a lot of data people, but to them, much more interesting than whether you can do a fancy neural network is whether you get the industry data, you're really motivated to work with that company in that industry. And they can believe that if you start with them, you will be around for 3 to 5 years, because you are actually motivated to work on their problems and their customers' problems. Therefore, if it's the right time for you to do an upgrading, upskilling, go ahead and do it. If you have strong reasons. If not, I go back to domain choice. You actually need to figure out where you want to go. That makes more difference. Okay, so let's assume you're through this and you've understood that you need your CV, your LinkedIn profile, you're using perhaps already your network to contact companies. So, how do I get started? How does this work? So the first thing to say is the talent pool has gotten a lot bigger. So it would be reasonable for you to assume that searching will take 6 months. It would also be reasonable for you to assume that you'll be sending 100 applications, get 6 interviews, and perhaps get 1 or 2 job offers from that. And then, so you need some time. You need a bit of patience. You need to figure out what it is that you need to do in your application and the interview process to get the offer on the table. That said, if you've done your homework and your CV and your LinkedIn profile speak to where you want to be, and you're not getting results within 4 to 6 weeks, so you've sent out 30 applications and no interview invitation has been coming forward, you need to stop and get help. Yeah, so it should do that. You can treat it a bit in the startup logic. So you get everything ready and you kind of test the market. And if the market test is not working, you need to go back to the drawing board and understand what you need to change. But if you are getting interview invitations, you need to realize that it may take a while. And the reason for that simply is that what we can see at the moment is that for entry-level positions or mid-level positions, also for career changers, you will have dozens, if not 100 applications per open position. Therefore, it's really important that you get your CV in order, but you also need that bit of patience. And here comes something else that you need to do. Instead of only applying, you need to be proactive about this. So one is you need to figure out from your academic institution or your circle of friends or the other network that you have, who is working at companies that you would like to work for. And you need to use those connections. You can use those connections best if you have a really, really great CV that says everything that needs to be said, and the person inside the company can take your CV, pass it on to HR, phone HR 3 days later and say, I really highly recommend interviewing this person. And your CV is so good that HR can't find a reason not to interview you. Okay? And we'll be talking about this, what a CV needs to look like to be that good that HR can't say. And this is really important. So think of it like front door and side door, right? So applying to HR is trying to use the front door to the company, but it's very often more effective to use the side door. So to work with people that are already inside the company and have some leverage over HR. And the third possibility that you have is to actually work with recruiters or recruiting firms. Now, there are a lot of things to be said about it, and you need to be a bit careful. So you need to be a bit careful in the sense that you don't want your CV shipped around. So you actually need to, again, proactively select a recruiter that you trust, maybe 2, but for sure not more, and work with them. They should also be able to provide you feedback on your CV and so on and so on. So, find somebody that can help you. And those are the main 3 things that you can do to move forward. If you are then in the interview process, as you know, there may be a technical interview. There is probably 3 rounds. There could also be, Amazon has 6 rounds. So you need to be aware that this will take time. It's a process. There are people that can veto your employment as you progress through the rounds, and hopefully you get to an offer. A really important part of this process can be the question about salary, which is why I specifically mention it here. So please do your homework, have a realistic expectation, and if you get asked about your salary, to do 2 things. One is indicate a range. So you say, I've done my homework. I think the value of this is between 60 and 65, 70 to 75. It indicates some sort of flexibility. You can also, by using a range, go from mid-level to a higher end of the range. And you can turn it around and ask them what their budget for the role is. And in this way, this is a relatively important part because unrealistic salary expectations are a red flag. They're a red flag if they're too high, but they're also a red flag if they're too low. So find out. Obviously, you can use sources like Glassdoor where these are posted, but also perhaps actually Google for salary surveys for the role in the region. So data science salary survey for Europe, data science salary survey for North America. Go and find some data. The reporting typically is cautious. So what you see is probably rather lower end to mid-level than the higher end, because the higher end data by the people that get that doesn't get reported. So I don't know, as a rule of thumb, use the data you find about on the market at 10%, and you have your range. Okay, so I've spoken about this process whereby you can go from exploring the stuff to actually starting your data career, and I've really emphasized the fact that this needs to be forward thinking, and you need to understand where you go, because you need a company to actually offer you the employment. So we're now going to spend a couple of minutes looking at what you can do. I'm focusing on the CV or the resume. Because the CV or the resume is actually under your control. It's in your hand. You design it. You can design it from scratch. I do not recommend using templates. I think they largely don't work. They constrain how you do things because they ask you to slot things in. It's a bit like your LinkedIn profile. It's a template too. It doesn't actually allow you to really work on expressing what you want to do. And I think Simple does it. So the best CVs that I've seen and collaborated on and worked with are just a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word that is then brought into the shape. It's actually also a single column CV so that machines can read it. 2-column CVs cannot always be parsed. And if you're applying on the European labor market, a 2-page CV is absolutely acceptable. It's actually probably the best solution. If you're on the North American or the Asian labor markets, then very often it is a 1-page CV, but it could also be a 2-page depending on. And if you have a PhD, I think on the European market for sure it's a 2-page CV. Okay, to recap briefly. So there's these 4 elements. You need your technical skills, you need your business or transferable skills, you need to be able to talk about your data experience, and you need your mission statement. Yeah, this forward-looking mission statement. Okay, and I want to dive in by basically giving you examples, and we're going to focus on the technical skills and the transferable or business skills, because this is something that you can look at examples and understand from the examples how to go about this. And then I will also briefly speak again about mission and data experience. So technical skills, here's an example for you. So it says at the top, 4+ years Python, 2+ years Bash and C++, and new R and SQL. Then it specifies for Python the 4+ years, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, SciPy, Scikit-learn, TensorFlow. Okay, what's really great about this? At a glance, I see the programming languages. I see 4+ years Python. That gives me confidence. Okay, then the proof, so to speak, here is it lists tools and libraries. It says, look, NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, Scikit-learn, TensorFlow. It also actually is a claim to say, you can test me on any of this, I will pass. Okay. Then the next thing is it kind of organizes it and says ETL pipelines, data processing, DevOps. Okay, so this is a profile that goes towards engineering. That goes towards engineering roles, analytics, data analytics engineering roles, and so on and so on. It goes in that. And then it sort of specifies for ETL pipelines. So what does that mean? Well, I've handled 10 terabytes of data. I've built search pipelines. I have done transformation of time series files to images. So I've handled data. I've built pipelines. It reinforces that by saying a second specific thing I've done is the processing of the data. So I've had signal data. I have used stuff around image analysis. I have identified signals, and you can guess here, perhaps, if you are familiar with this, that this is somebody that is coming out of astrophysics, radio astronomy. So a physicist, she was working in that field, and she was using her experience to kind of say, look, I have experience with pipelines, with data processing, and also DevOps. Yeah, so I can put things into production. Okay, I work with version control and so on. So this is a way in which you can do this. Next up, we have another example here. 1 second. Something not working for me at the moment. I don't see clearly. So somebody with technical skills, where at the top it just says Python developer of the SciImage library. So the point here is that if you're a Python developer, no further questions about your programming skills. Then it says data analytics, databases, statistics and modeling, and data visualization. So you can see that this is a profile that goes towards data analyst roles. Perhaps data analyst roles for high levels of numeracy are required, also particularly understanding of statistics. And then it sort of says, for data analytics, I've done algorithm development, and tools that I've used, NumPy, Pandas, SciPy, scikit-learn. Databases, I've done filtering and transformation, statistics and modeling. I've done everything to model optimization, and I'm also good at data visualization. And actually, the data visualization here isn't based on tools like Tableau or Power BI, so it's not vendor tools. I can actually do this myself. Algorithm development, okay. It's a clear profile. So if a company really is interested in analytics engineering, and really productionizing data analytics, you have a profile here that matches. So this is a person that wants to be in analytics, but doesn't want to do Excel, Power BI, or Tableau, at least not as the day-to-day stuff, right? But develop that kind of stuff. So that's I think that's also really clear, and then also really interesting and easy for companies to handle. Here I have another one. Again, Python 5+ years, MATLAB, C++, and so on. Then it says data analysis, data visualization, machine learning, and IoT. So you see this is a profile that, again, is there's a lot around analysis and visualization. You also see machine learning, it's just scikit-learn. But there's this slant towards IoT. So there's this slant towards industry, manufacturing, maybe predictive maintenance, maybe predictive quality, and so on and so on. So it's also a profile that includes experience with hardware. And again, I think like this is really clear what's on the table and where this is going. By the way, all of these profiles were successful, and also were successful fairly rapidly in securing not just the interview, but the job offer. Okay, now let's change gear and let's talk about those business skills, or the transferable skills. So I'm sure you've heard soft skills. Yeah, and then no. It's absolutely not what I mean. So when I see CVs where people have soft skills, they typically just list them. And creative thinking, my favorite. So as soft skills, you can list anything and everything, and people typically provide lists, and it's really, really off-putting. It's off-putting because, put like this, the soft skills are always a claim to fame. I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I'm really, whatever. But are you? And anyway, this is just you analyzing yourself. So where's the proof? Okay. The proof only comes, so to speak, beyond reasonable doubt if you get really specific and you're able to give examples. And then also, I really recommend not focusing on the I skills, so the me skills, the creative thinker, I'm a creative thinker, I'm whatever, but to actually focus on skills that are of value to the organization or of value to the other people. If you look at this one, it does include at the end leadership. Yeah, okay, that's a bit more of a me skill. I want to move ahead. I want to be able to also be considered 2 years down the line for a lead management position. But before that, it says hardware design, organization and communication, and coaching. Yeah, this is for the company and for other people. And this is really important. And then organization and communication, coordination of greater 10 engineers across 5 facilities for running accelerator experiments. That's specific. That's believable. If you've actually coordinated 10 engineers across 5 facilities, great. Now, if you say that, I'm going to ask you in the interview. If your story pans out, that is a really big plus. Okay. Same as, hardware design, 2+ years of electronic tools and programming microcontrollers. Okay, cool. Can you bring one? Show me. Yeah, big plus. So this really matters. It really matters to companies because it's not just about you fitting in. It's about you working with them, working for them, and creating value for the company and creating value for the people around it. So what kind of skills do you have that actually do this? Here you have another one. Again, it kind of like contains one me item, the strategical thinking, but it also, again, includes 3 items that are really aimed at others. So the project management, the interpersonal communication, and the expertise sharing. And again, principal investigator of 3 research projects resulting in 6 peer-reviewed publications. So yes, this person was in academia, right? But we've made it specific, we've quantified it, and if you've been the PI of 3 research projects resulting in 6 peer-reviewed publications, you can do project management. Yeah, it's transferable. If you did it there, you can do it now, and you can do it later. Something I think really, really important and often overlooked, this communication team and so on and so on. Optimize project progress via weekly scientific debates with superiors and peers. And again, here the point is that you ask yourself, so, you had progress meetings, you had team meetings. How often were they? Were they monthly? Were they weekly? So on and so on. And make that clear, because if you have been doing project progress reporting on a weekly basis in academia, you can do it in industry. Okay? Or shared domain knowledge via seminar talks, wiki pages, and peer meetings. So you actually know how to do this. Okay? Okay, so we've talked about the technical skills and we've talked about the transferable skills. Here's an example around data experience. So why is this so important? It is important because you need to translate. You need to, think of it. So perhaps you've participated in some form of science night, right? Science night, I mean these events where scientific institutions open up to the public for a day or an evening, and you have members of the public coming in, so to speak, lay people, and you're trying to explain to them what it is that you're actually doing. This is it. You're applying to companies, you want to move to industry. Maybe you're lucky and there's somebody from your academic background that is the hiring manager or can somehow understand what it was that you were doing, but probably not. Okay, just never assume. So you now need to find a way of telling on the CV and perhaps your LinkedIn profile what it is that you were doing, and doing it in such a way that they say, oh, this is interesting. Oh, tell me more. Oh, can I, whatever. Okay. So you need to really sit down and write down your data experience. So here, 100 plus research designs based on statistical inference and data analytics. I know what type of questions can be answered with which data. Large-scale survey data, 3 countries, additional data included text data, global data, social demographic data. Okay, so this is somebody that's actually coming out of the social sciences, but has worked with data a lot. And if you ask me, so to speak, going to marketing analytics is one obvious way in which this plays out. Another data experience or data vignette. Research data scientist using Python and Bash to wrangle and analyze 70 plus terabytes of data, of simulation data from IPCC model. This is about climate change, IPCC. So 70 terabyte, I'm used to, large amounts. I used a new type of algorithm I developed and solved an 18-year-old problem. Okay, this is like science night. And the point of it is that you show your data experience, you show you can communicate it to people that don't actually do your work, and you can make it interesting. This is a really, really important skill inside companies. Please remember, we only have 500,000, okay, now more than 500,000, but we have a small number of professionals globally. Most people around you aren't necessarily data literate, but you still need to convey what you're doing and get them interested. And this is really important for hiring managers because they need to believe that you can communicate with the rest of the company. Okay, one more, which I'm going to skip here. Okay, on to the final piece of the puzzle, this search and mission statement. Now, this really goes at the top of your CV and it goes at the top of your LinkedIn profile. It is what people see first. It is what people read first. It is what people use to decide whether they want to talk to you again or in the first instance. I'm a data analyst with a background in environmental engineering, actively looking for a new role in Berlin, Amsterdam, or another metropolis. I am well versed in utilizing services and packages, for example, AWS, Microsoft Tableau, and I can build from scratch in Python. Working with data gives me flow, so I prefer a dynamic startup or a company in an increasingly data-driven industry. Okay, so I'm a data analyst. This is the role that I'm looking for, with a background in environmental engineering. In this case, was a master's degree. Actively looking for a new role in Berlin or Amsterdam. These were simply the preferred destinations, and it's okay to stay them. Then to say, what is it that I bring that you should be interested in? So I can really use services and packages. I've done Amazon, Microsoft, and Tableau. That means you could also do Google or whatever it was that they were using. So you have this familiarity with the big cloud providers. And actually, I think my Python programming skills are so good I could build from scratch. Okay. And I also have an idea what type of company I'm looking for. Yeah. So it needs to be dynamic. Another example, I'm a data scientist with a PhD focused on regularization theory and optimization. I have 4+ years of experience in data processing and modeling. I'm looking for a new challenge in Barcelona, Madrid, or Lisbon. So person wanted to, those were the places of choice from October 2021. So it was a while ago, preferably in a leading business team, mitigating climate change and reducing the carbon footprint. Yeah, really clear. What's my professional mission? Where do I want to go? Where do I come from? But more importantly, where do I want to go? Am I interested? If you are, if you can relate to this, we should talk. And then final, data analyst with a PhD in computation physics and big data experience, actively looking for a new role in Hamburg, Germany, or French-speaking Europe. Okay, so native French speaker. 3+ years of algorithm development, high performance computing, and data visualization. Transferable to finance, logistics, and ML innovation. Again, yeah. What kind of role do I have? Where do I want to go? What else do I bring to the table? Algorithm development, high performance computing, makes sense with finance and logistics, huge amounts of data, server, being able to handle this stuff at scale, is what this statement says. Okay, so I've been going on for a while, and I am now going to turn to some of your questions. And if you have more questions, please let me know. I'm going to spend some minutes now answering those before moving to the final part. So, first question we have: how useful are online certificates in your CV? A commonly required skill is AWS Google Cloud knowledge, which isn't typically part of the academic experience. How useful is such a certificate? So, a certificate provided by AWS, Google, or Azure at the moment, if it's not any certificate, but if it's, so to speak, a data engineering, ML engineering type of certificate, from our experience at the moment, carries a market value of about 10,000 euros or dollars. So this is interesting. And this is also something that's changed. As more and more companies actually now actively work towards deployment and are using cloud solutions and typically make a baseline decision on AWS, Google, or Azure, plus whatever other providers are then, kind of plug and play put into this. They do actually need people that have experience with this. And if they don't have experience with this, that have the certificate, or actually ideally have the experience and are also certified, and thereby, it's kind of like beyond doubt. Yeah? And as I said, at the moment, it's interesting that from what I can tell, or we can tell, the premium that they carry on the market is about 10,000 per year. And this is interesting because a lot of the online certificates, also from the really, really well-known big American players like Udacity or Coursera, have hitherto not really been impactful on the market. So there was a time in the United States and perhaps a few other countries around the world where on the back of a Coursera or Udacity or similar kind of thingy, you would get invited to interviews. In Europe, this has actually, sadly, in a way, never really been the case. And they don't carry that much weight, actually, because you were sort of on your CV. So they don't. That said, there's something that you can do. You can kind of use a trick. So if you've been investing relatively a lot into online learning, and you've been investing into getting certificates, and with this came a lot of project work that you've done, then you could, instead of and perhaps you have been using that, so to speak. There's a GitHub presence, there's a repository, you've somewhere documented this. Okay, then you could specifically include a section on your CV called data projects. And then don't list 10, just list the 3 data projects that you're proud of. And then this is much more interesting because you show them a repository, you show them something that you've actively done. They can possibly even look at it. They can ask you questions to the interview, and it shows, so to speak, the practical experience. And that is much more interesting than the online certificate to every employer. Okay. And I have a follow-on comment on this. So if you are still in the phase where you're learning and you want more experience and you're actually thinking about these online courses or doing an in-person bootcamp or whatever it is, again, if you know where you want to go, if you know in which domain you want to end up, then it's relatively clear. Whatever project work you do, whatever capstone you do, whatever thing you play around, make sure that the data are from the same industry. So look, you're in academia, you want to move across. You found a capstone project, you did a Kaggle competition, and you did, I don't know, a hackathon or whatever. If in each of these cases the data is from the health sector, right? Then companies in the health and pharma industry will suddenly be a lot more interested in your profile if you're coming from academia, yeah? Because in a row over the course of 12 months while you were still studying or whatever it is that we're doing, you've explored multiple projects all based on health data, all based on marketing data, all based on finance data, all based on e-commerce data. That actually moves the needle. Okay, so if you're thinking about teaching, learning, training, portfolio, again, which domain, and make sure everything pays forward to where you want to be. Okay, next one. Following the line of that question, how useful and appealing is a data analytics course online for someone changing career from biology, for example? So I think that, online courses are useful, okay? Online courses are useful because they do 2 things for you. They introduce you, I'm assuming you picked a good one. They introduce you to the state of the art. They really actually typically do introduce you to the state of the art. One way of checking that is to find out whether on the course that you're using, there is actually a real company involved in the curriculum development. Yeah, if that is the case, or it's a known expert in the field or whatever. So check out the quality of the course. But assuming that, it does 2 things for you. It introduces you to the state of the art. That's great. And the second is, you do that, or you do that twice or whatever, and you will have a really good understanding of whether this field is for you. Yeah. After all, this is an important life decision. It's your career choice. So online courses are useful. It's just that the certificates don't get you a job. The project work or the portfolio that you're building may well get you a job. You meet other people that are interested in the same career, and you can use that to go where you want to go. And then, yes, you can change career. So if you're from biology and you're saying you're changing career, I'm assuming you don't want to go into the health pharma kind of sector, but perhaps somewhere else. If you're leaving academia, that precisely is possible. That's the best moment to do it. You finished your master's, you finished your PhD, or you're leaving your postdoc, and you want to do something else, yes, do it now. Okay, more questions, please. Okay, would you mention a GitHub profile in a CV, and how important is it in the data science sector? Yes, I would. So, yes, and then yes, clean up your GitHub. Okay, the stuff that's on there, you need to worry about the communication that you have there and how easily it is understandable and how plausible it is. It's like that Science Night communication thing. Okay, so GitHub is useful, but it needs to speak to the reader. It needs to be easy to understand, and it is legitimate to limit your GitHub to the stuff that you're proud of. And then, yes, you would mention the GitHub profile in your CV. And no, chances are they won't look at it, but it's there, so they know that you've done this type of work. That's the important information. And then in the interview process, this can actually be a point. And if there's something that you have there, you can also use a question that you're getting in an interview process to say, okay, may I redirect you? Could we quickly have a look at my GitHub on XY? And you go and show them. Okay. It's interesting because it speaks to your technical credibility. It speaks to your credibility in communicating that technical stuff that you're doing. So it's one of those elements that I would always recommend including if your GitHub is clean, if it is presentable, if it's not a mess. So then yes. And it does it in the process. It may make a difference. May well make a difference. Okay, next question. How to keep the balance at listing too many info and too, not quite sure. Okay, and too much or too little on regarding the data project section. I would really like to emphasize my interdisciplinary experience in CV somehow to change domain. Okay, so there's actually an easier answer to this. Whatever you do, stick to the count of 3. Sounds banal, but it's actually really important. Why stick to the count of 3? So we all do want information, but none of us wants to deal with too much information. We want to be able to make decisions quickly, particularly hiring managers in HR. They need to make decisions quickly with confidence. Okay. So if you want to emphasize your interdisciplinary experience, well, you have 3 bullet points, three examples that you can give. And that's what you then need to do. So either you give an example where you say, we were an interdisciplinary team from physics, biology, and X, or you give an example from biology and an example from physics. So then you indirectly show this. But this is it. And then also, when you write this kind of stuff, it needs to be short. So on the examples that I showed you for the transferable skills or also the data experience, 3 sentences is enough. 3 bullet points is enough. 3 lines is enough. As banal as it sounds, you are best off fighting for every single word. Use a tool or use your friends or use your own imagination to make every sentence as short as possible. Yeah. Because in doing that and really going through the pain of editing it down to the last word, you shorten it and you make it probably a lot more impactful, because you have to ask yourself how you can convey something that you just use 20 words for in like 8. And that is a really, really great service to your reader. Yeah. If they get it really fast, not only does it move you forward, it's also likely to leave people with a very positive impression. So there is really too much info on the CV. That is really a problem, that people haven't actually really edited it, made a real big fat effort at understanding what is the really important stuff, what is the really essential information that needs to be on there, and really conveying that. So really important. Next one. All the sections of the CV you mentioned are skills-based. Maybe I missed it in the beginning, but it seems repetitive to have this plus timeline. Drop the latter. So typically you won't do it because HR actually needs to see the timeline of the last 3 to 5 years. But you're right. So the point is, too many people go on about their professional experience for way too long, with too many bullet points, too many words, too many activities, too much of everything. And it actually doesn't help. It doesn't help your reader, because you're putting it on your reader from your work experience to kind of extract and then imagine what might be relevant. And that's why I'm so keen on the technical skills and the business skills, because it asks you to do the work for your reader, and your reader will be really happy that you found a way of compacting this information and showing it to them in kind of like 2 tables fast. And this means indeed that your experience section should shrink, and that in the experience section, the really important thing is HR needs to see your timeline. You can imagine this. They want to see that you've been in employment. They want to see that you've been in continuous employment. If there are gaps in your timeline, somebody in HR will jokingly say to somebody else, "Oh, they were in prison." Yeah. So you need a close timeline. You need to account for every month of the past 3 to 5 years. If there is a gap, write in sabbatical, but close that timeline. So it's really important. But then in the timeline, they just need to understand which company you were working in, where that, was it remote or was it in a specific location? Where were you? And actually, you need that for the last 3 to 5 years. Everything that's older than 3 to 5 years on a CV, you can feel free to delete. You are not required to be complete on a CV. This isn't a record for administrative record or whatever. This is a marketing document. So indeed, the profile statement and the skills section is what people look at. The experience section is something that HR needs to tick its boxes, and it should really be the basic information and maybe the main result that you had or the main achievement. Describing your activities or tasks in detail is actually not really interesting. It may be interesting if you're already in an industry and the job that you were doing for one company, you want to upgrade at another company and it's kind of like similar enough. Yeah, then it actually makes a difference. But other than that, it doesn't. Okay, next question. Would you modify the mission statement for different positions or would you go with the same one? Yeah, I would go with the same one. This is exactly it. This is the startup thought logic or the startup thinking. So what you want to do is you want to have one CV that you use for everything. And if it isn't working, you change the CV. So one of my favorite stories is in some European countries, for example, in Germany, for a long, long time, there was this practice of dating your CV and signing it. Paper era. But I still get this stuff. I still see it to this day. And it's a nice example of how to introduce unforced errors into your CV. So they send out the CV and you forget to update the date, and it carries the date from like 4 months ago, and then the person reading it understands that you've been looking for too long. So unforced errors, don't. So this is exactly the point. You use one CV and you need to work on it so that it speaks. And also, I am so keen on this mission statement at the top, so you don't need a cover letter. This is the point. So think of your friend giving it to somebody else, okay? They can give one PDF. The other person needs to get everything from that one document. Precisely, you don't need a cover letter. You don't want a cover letter. Actually, people don't want to read this any longer. And this is why you need this profile statement. And this is also why this profile statement needs to be forward-looking. It needs to understand when you're available, where you want to go, which city you're, so on and so on, so that somebody can really, in 3 lines, assess whether this is a match or not. So one CV, one LinkedIn profile, highly aligned. Work with that for 6 weeks. If you have no results, you need to change your product. But only if you have no results do you change your product. Okay, I'm through the questions that I've got here. Any more coming? If so, please have them coming now. I'm going to gently move us forward for the remaining 10 minutes. And then apologies again to everybody about the wrong link. So we're going to repeating this on February the 3rd. And you can join us then again. Okay, so choose your industry. What is okay, I'm going to go back to questions. What is an acceptable break in the employment section for HR? That's fine. So if you're waiting for a few months for the PhD exam, put it in your CV, literally, that you had to wait a few months. You can do that. That's absolutely legitimate. Okay? It's the system, not you. The interesting question is, what do you do with those few months? You focus on your job search, hopefully, and maybe you do something online or do a course or something. But that's fine. The truth of the matter is that for HR, no break is acceptable at the end of the day. So if you ask an HR person individually over a cup of coffee, of course, it's always acceptable. Everybody now understands that life is what it is. People want to have breaks. They want to go on a sabbatical. They want to go on a long holiday. Something didn't work out. They got a job choice wrong and had to restart over. So all of this happens. They understand this. But nevertheless, HR is in a position where they have 100 applications and 6 people get invited for interview, so they need to make choices. So any gap is a problem. And the main recommendation I have here is just to be honest. So, if you had to wait around or you went on a sabbatical or some other things, say that. And then also sometimes it's actually better to delete something. So again, on the CV, there is no need to be entirely, this isn't an administrative record. Neither is your LinkedIn profile, by the way. So you can do something. So it has happened to people that they really chose the wrong job and left after 8 weeks. This happens. If that happened to you, I would take those 8 weeks out of my LinkedIn profile and also out of my CV. I would just not mention it. And I would put in a sabbatical or something like this. I think this is entirely legitimate. These mistakes can happen. Maybe you even feel responsible for your mistake, or it wasn't you, but you are not, to my mind, obliged to tell the whole world about it on your LinkedIn profile or your CV. So on the one hand, if there are gaps, the general point is, if there's a gap, explain it, and then explain it smartly. Okay. I was, in terms of choosing your industry, trying to show you some stuff a bit more. So you can find other kind of reports or data on the internet that kind of tell you certain kinds of things about where it's perhaps worthwhile applying. And one of the ways in which this is interesting is to look at reports that look at investment in machine learning or AI. And you can see here that in the technology, media, and entertainment and telecommunications industry, there's a lot going on. So that's a good choice. You can also see that there's a lot going on in the life sciences, but it's harder in life science and healthcare because the returns are not so great. And you can also see that even if you are a fan of government and the public sector, that at the moment, including education, there's too little investment and too low returns. So you're just going to have a hard time. And even if you're a fan of this, and this is perhaps where you want to go, it's just not great as a first choice. Yeah, so you should go somewhere where it's working. That just means that in terms of your skills and your experience and so on, it just goes a lot better. So this is important. Another way of looking at this is to find the top 100 AI startups in any year. Again, the point of these kinds of market maps is that they have certain kinds of categories, and you just understand where the music is playing. Okay, so if you have a lot going on in, I don't know, transportation, supply chain, healthcare, finance, or in certain kind of categories like generative AI or marketing and so on, you just know there's more opportunities there. That's also an important indicator. Yeah, where are your opportunities? Where are there simply more entry-level jobs because the field is growing and moving fast? In the meantime, I have another question here. Is including a not finished PhD seen as bad in the CV? No. So I have seen people actually successfully move from a PhD to a data job and not finishing their PhD as a result. I think it needs to become much more acceptable to leave your PhD after a year or two if it's not working out. There are many good reasons to stop your PhD. And then I also know that sadly over the past 20 years, particularly also in the European context, people stick with a PhD that's not working way too long. But you can typically still reuse what you've learned there somewhere else. So no, this is not a problem. And again, you somehow need to account for the fact that you were spending these years doing it. So you do include it in your education section, and if it also included employment, you include the employment period in your employment section. And then, of course, in the American system, for example, you have ABD, all but dissertation. But I think it's also fine to just leave it open. So you have it, and the people can see it, but you're nevertheless applying. So then they would need to figure out and ask you back. And I think it's okay to leave it open. If you know that you are leaving your PhD and you don't want to finish, I would do the following. I would send in my CV, or know that I'm interested in a company, and actually I would phone HR. So this is a good reason for a phone call. You need to make a phone call and find out who's the person who's going to be handling your application. And then you say, look, I've sent your CV, or I'm sending you my CV. My name is so and so. I'm in a PhD program XY. But actually, I want you to know that is my intention not to finish it, and here's why. I think that way you can handle it. So you pass on this information privately, confidentially, not in writing, just verbally, and so they know. And then understand means that so the benefit for them is that they understand you're available. They can hire you immediately. They don't have to wait until you finish your PhD. I think that's the benefit for you if you're in that position. Okay. Here's another one that I'm showing you. It's called the AI and FinTech Market Map. So I'm showing you all of these because I just know that this question, which domain where I'm going to, is really the hardest part of all of this. And that's why you're looking at this. And then you have it also by country. And you have it by Europe. There's even a database that you can go and look at and filter. So, and think of it like this. So now I'm showing you a lot of this. And you may think, oh, do I have to? Actually, I'm showing you this because I want to encourage you to make fast decisions. I just want to say there's enough information out there for you to sit down one weekend, or one day next week and one day in 3 weeks, and actually make a short list of the industries you would care to be in. So this is it. 2 days should give you a short list of 5 possible industries that you can then narrow down to 2 industries perhaps. And then once you've narrowed it down to 2 industries, you actually also know how to structure your CV. So fast decisions. And I would do it as a fast decision. Now, I know we can get this wrong. Yeah. So I know I might get it wrong. So you can get this wrong and later find out that you need to change your decision. But you still want to do it fast. So I'm showing you this to enable you to make a fast decision, because a fast decision will help you to build the product, i.e. your CV and LinkedIn profile, and you can go and test it for 6 weeks, and you can see if you're getting the interviews that you want. And if that doesn't work, you go back and change your mind about things. But this is exactly how I would handle it. And there's no good reason to be afraid. So, do I need to keep my options open? Will this work out? Am I? No. No, because in any case, you're applying, you're going through interview processes. If, first you need to get the interviews, then you need to get more than one interview. And while you're in the process and you're talking to companies, you will actually figure out if this is the right choice for you. Okay. And if you then find out it's the wrong choice, okay, good. You go back to the drawing board and start again. And actually, this is why you need to be so fast about it. Okay. You need to get faster to the point where you can validate your choice. So any old way you look at it, I'm showing you this for you to make fast decisions, to come up with a short list of 5 possible industries, narrow it down to 2, and go. And then find out in the process whether this is the right one. Okay, there's more of these slides showing you. Okay, I'm done. I'm through. It's to 12:29. I apologize for the technical glitch up. I have in the meantime actually worked out what happened. It is in the streaming studio that I'm using that the wrong event. So the one for February 3 is actually the one that we're running, and not the one for the 13th of January. So the fault is with us for choosing the wrong, or a glitch in the system of the provider that we're using. No idea. So we're going to repeat this on February the 3rd and same time. And what I want to leave you with is going back to the beginning, saying, why are the 10 years ahead of you the most exciting in the industry? And maybe if we look back in 50 years, will still be considered the most exciting in the industry. Why is it the next 10 years? So it is the next 10 years because everything that's being done will now be organized at scale. And actually, it's an easy point to make today because the last 4 weeks have been full of Chat GPT and OpenAI. And so everybody now suddenly really gets it that this is going to happen at scale. It's going to happen at scale for everybody, but the groundwork has been done. So it's 10 years of this going on. It's 10 years since data scientist was the sexiest job. Like 5, 6, 7 years ago, data science teams were small. Sometimes the data scientist, she was a lone wolf. There were companies that thought you could you needed 3 data engineers and you could recreate Alexa. All of this is gone. Everybody now understands it's a serious investment. It's a long-term investment. You need teams at scale. You need a few dozen data engineers. You need a few dozen data scientists. You need to worry about your cloud deployment. So you need to build large teams for the stuff to have impact. And companies now also have understood how to create impact. And this kind of impact is coming, and it's coming all around us. And so the next 10 years are really the years in which the careers will be made. And if you are in academia, if you're in academia now, you may remember for most of the Western world, actually also Eastern Europe and also lots of East Asia, there's this mythical age in higher education, i.e. the 1960s or 1970s, maybe sometimes into the early 1980s, when in many countries, a new university basically opened every week. Yeah, so you had this time where a new university was opening every week, and it was really, really easy to become a professor. Well, really, really easy. Comparatively really easy to become a professor, just simply because there were new professorships every week, new positions opening up. We're seeing this in the data field at the moment. I can see it from the amount of companies that are suddenly wanting to have a director for data science, data engineering, or whatever. So the next 10 years is when this is organizing at scale, when we'll go from 500,000 to 5 million and more professionals in the field, when careers are being made to team lead and director. So the next 10 years, I think, are the golden age. And if this is for you, congratulations, you're lucky. The golden age is right ahead of you. Okay, we're at 12:32 my time. Any final question that I can answer before leaving you for today? Did I answer this one already? If I know when I will finish my PhD after a given time. No. Again, it's just you need to craft or draft your CV in such a way that there is a timeline and it explains itself. Okay, then thank you very much to everybody who's been with us today. Sorry for the technical glitch. I will now be writing emails to everybody else explaining the technical glitch, and hope to see you again. Thank you very much.